Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making a classic vest, and this time with pockets. For this make, we went with a deep V vest as those offer the best shape and intended styling versatility, a lovely new stitch combo, and not one, but two pockets. This vest is the best. Speaking of, if you're looking for the best sweaters, the best cardigans, or the best anything crochet related, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of great crochet tutorials and patterns with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado, for this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 350 grams of yarn, and that's 660 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us your favorite stitch. I really like the texture that the Suzette stitch gives, and I love even more that it's using basic stitches. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 3 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, and half double crochet. This tutorial is made for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and you explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start off by making an even number chain that starts at mid-chest down to like the bottom of the cardigan to be, keeping in mind that we'll have the bottom band. Now I'd like for the cardigan portion to go down to roughly about where my waist is, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 30, and that's roughly 8 inches or 20 centimeters. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do our first row, which is a half double crochet row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, and inserting our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a half double. Let's do the next one together. Yarn over, into that next chain, pull through for 3 loops, then yarn over, pull through all 3. And that's it. Continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. We've put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Into that last one, we're all going to do an increase of 3 half doubles, so we're going to yarn over. Into that last chain, we're going to insert with 3 half double crochets. So there's 1, same last chain with 2, and then same last chain with 3 half double crochets. And now our row 1 is complete. And just as a quick tip, we should have 2 more stitches than chains that we made. Now this is going to be a 4-row repeat. Our second row in our 4-row repeat is another half double crochet. So we're going to chain 2 and flip. Now since we're along the top, we're going to start this following row with an increase of 3 half double crochets as well. So yarn over, and into that first stitch, insert with 3 half doubles. There's 1. Into that same first stitch with a second, and then into that same first stitch with a third half double crochet. Then continue with 1 half double crochet into the rest of our stitches for this row. And then at the end of this row, we should have 2 more stitches than our previous row. We are back, and our first 2 rows are complete. They're both half double crochet rows, and now the third row in our 4-row repeat is a moss stitch row. So whenever we're getting started on a moss stitch row, we're always going to start with a chain 2. That first chain is going to count as our turning chain, and then that second chain is going to count as a chain. That'll make more sense in a second, and then flip your work. Now what we're going to do from here is simply skip that first stitch, and then into the next, we're going to insert with a single crochet. So we're going to skip 1, into the second stitch, insert with a single crochet. And now all together we should have our first chain space. It might be a little hard to see, but that's our first chain space, and then our single crochet. So far we should all have 2 stitches for this row. And we're just going to continue this to reach the end of the row. Again, we're going to chain 1, skip a stitch, and then into the following stitch, insert with a single crochet. So now altogether we should have 1, that's our chain space, 2, which is our single crochet, 3, which is our next chain space, and 4, which is our single crochet, so a total of 4 stitches for this row. Once more, chain 1, skip a stitch, and into the next with a single crochet. And we're just going to continue this until we all have 2 stitches left. We are back in the 3rd row, and our 4-row repeat is nearly complete. Now we should all have 1, 2 stitches left. All we're going to do from here is chain 1, since the last stitch that we all should have done should have been a single crochet, skip that next stitch, which is our second to last, and then into that last stitch, we're going to do an increase, and that increase is going to be a single, half double, and double all into that same last stitch. So like I said, we chained 1, skip that next stitch, and then into the next, which is the last stitch. We're going to start with a single crochet, into that same last stitch with a half double crochet, and then into that same last stitch with a double crochet. So all together, that's a yarn over, into that same last stitch, pull through. Then when we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now that is going to be how we always do our increase for the first moss stitch row in our 3-row repeat. Now the 4th row in our 4-row repeat is going to be another moss stitch row. Now this one is going to have an increase in it as well, so let's do that together. Like I said, starting every moss stitch row, we're all going to chain 2. That first chain is going to count as our turning chain. Second chain is going to count as our chain, and flip our work. Now how we're going to increase into our second moss stitch row is we're going to skip that first stitch, and then into the stitch after that, we're going to do an increase of 3 single crochets. So we chain 2, we're going to skip that first stitch, and then into the stitch right after that, 3 single crochets. So there's 1, into that same stitch, a second, and then into that same stitch with a 3rd single crochet. So right now, so far for this row, we should have our chain space, which is a little difficult to see again, but there's 1, and then our increase of 3, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So far we should all have 4 stitches for this second moss stitch row. Then from here, we're going to continue on with our moss stitch as per usual. So right after our increase of 3, we're going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, and then into the next, which should be our chain space. We're just going to insert our hook into the entirety of that chain space with a single crochet. Now, altogether we should have 1, which is our chain space, 2, 3, 4, that's our increase, 5, which is our chain space, and then 6. Once more, we're going to chain 1, skip a stitch, which is a single crochet from our previous row, and then into that next, which is a chain space, insert with a single. From here, continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. So we are back. Our first 4 rows for the neckline of our front panel is complete. Now as a really quick tip, so far for every row we should have 2 more stitches than the previous row. So every row should end on an even number of stitches, and all we're going to do from here is just continue to repeat our 4 previous rows until we have a portion that can reach from mid-chest, making sure that our tail end is placed at mid-chest, all the way up until this portion can reach the top of our shoulder. Now really quickly, I'm just going to do the following 4 rows with you just to make sure that we all got it down. So from here, getting started on a row 5, since we should all be along the bottom, chain 2, flip our work. Put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one. So we are back. My row 5 is nearly complete. I put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, leaving that last stitch, and into that last stitch, which should be our chain space from our previous row, we're going to do our increase of 3 half doubles. But as a really quick tip, if it looks like we don't have any stitches left, you may need to flip your work over, then kind of separate your piece a little bit, and that is our last chain space. And we just want to make sure that we're working into that chain space because every row needs to end on an even number of stitches. So I'm going to flip my work back over, and then into that last stitch, I'm going to do my increase of 3 half doubles. So there's 1, there is 2, and then into that same last stitch, there is 3. Now that is our first row in our 4-row repeat. The next row is another half double crochet row that now starts with an increase of 3. So chain 2, flip your work, and then into that first stitch, insert with 3 half doubles. So there's one, same first stitch with a second, same first stitch with a third, then 1 half double crochet into the rest of our stitches for this row. So we're back. We have just finished up our second half double crochet row. Now we're going to do our moss stitch row. So that's always going to start with a chain 2 and flip. That first chain is our turning chain, second chain is our chain. Then all we're going to do is skip a stitch, into the next, insert with a single, and continue this until we all have 2 stitches left. We're nearly finished with our first moss stitch row. We should all have 2 stitches left. All we're going to do now is chain 1, skip a stitch, which is our second to last, and then into that last, we're going to insert with a single, half double, and double. So here's a single, into that last stitch with a half double, and same last stitch with a double. And now our third row in our 4-row repeat is complete. Now we're going to do another moss stitch row, so we're going to chain 2. First chain counts as a turning chain, second chain counts as a chain, and flip. And whenever we're doing our second moss stitch row, we're going to skip that first stitch, into the next, an increase of 3 single crochets. So like I said, skip 1, into the next with 1, with 2, with 3 single crochets. Then from here, chain 1, skip a stitch into the next, which should be our chain space, insert with a single, and just continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. We are back. Now we should all have a total of 8 rows complete. Like I said, we're just going to continue to repeat our 4 previous rows that can reach from mid-chest all the way up till we reach the top of our shoulder. Then I will meet you guys back right after we finish up our second moss stitch row, sew along the bottom, and then we can do our shoulder together from there. We are back. So the neckline portion of my front panel is complete. I have a total of 20 rows. My width is roughly 6.5 inches or 16 centimeters, or my height from the tallest point down to where my hook is roughly 17 inches or 43 centimeters. Now what we're going to do from here is our shoulder. So it's going to be our same 4-row repeat, but now without any increases or decreases. So what we're going to do, since we should all be along the bottom, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Then after that is going to be our second half double crochet row. So chain 2, flip your work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, making our way back down. When we have the following 2 half double crochet rows completed, I'll meet you guys back just to get our first moss stitch row completed, and then I'll let you do the rest of the shoulder on your own. Okay, so we are back. Our first 2 half double crochet rows for the shoulder are complete. Now we didn't do any increases or decreases. It looks like we did because of the way it's curving, but if we pull it upright, you can see that the top is blunt, and now the following row is going to be a moss stitch row. So that's going to be done pretty much the same way that we've done all the other moss stitch rows, again without any of the increases or decreases. So we should all be along the bottom. We're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then do our moss stitch all the way up until we don't have any more stitches left, and then I'll meet you back. So we've made our way all the way up with our first moss stitch row. We are worked into the last stitch. We should have the same amount of stitches as our 2 previous rows since we aren't having any increases or decreases, and I just wanted to start off the second moss stitch row with you. So all we're going to do is chain 2. That first chain counts as our turning chain, second chain counts as a chain, and flip your work. Then, just like before, we're going to skip that first stitch into the next stitch, which should be our chain space. Then what we're going to do is skip that first stitch and into the next stitch, which should be our chain space, insert with a single crochet for, so far, a total of 2 stitches for this row, which is our chain space and a single crochet. And this is per usual, so chain 1, skip a stitch, which is our single from our previous row, into the next, which is our chain space, with a single, and continue on with this to reach the end of the row. Now for the shoulder portion, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 4 previous rows with no increases and no decreases. So 2 half double crochet rows and then 2 moss stitch rows until we have a shoulder portion that can reach the tip of your shoulder. So making sure that the tail end of our piece, so this end right here, is still at mid-chest, and until this solid portion that we have here reaches the tip of our shoulder. Then I will meet you back right after a second moss stitch row again, and then we can finish up our front panel with an underarm. We are back, and my shoulder portion is now complete. Now I just had an additional 4 rows for my shoulder, so I now have a total of 24 rows. My width is roughly 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters, Now from here, we're going to finish off with our underarm. So first things first, what we're all going to do is place this up to ourselves, making sure that the blunt end of our shoulder portion is right at the top of our shoulder and that our tail end is still at mid-chest. We're all going to insert our stitch marker into any even numbered stitch from the top, right where the corner of our underarm is. So I actually inserted my stitch marker into the 22nd stitch from the top. That's roughly 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters from the top. Now from here, we're going to do our following half double crochet row, since we all should have ended after our second moss stitch row. Since we're along the bottom, we're all going to chain 2 and flip our work and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, leaving 3 stitches right before our stitch marker stitch. So we are back. We put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, and all together we should have 1, 2, 3 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now what we're going to do is a decrease of 3 half doubles, so yarn over. Inserting your hook into that third to last stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, and then into that last stitch, which is the stitch right before our stitch marker, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then yarn over and pull through all 5. Once when this first underarm row is complete, double check your work and just make sure that we're ending on an even number of stitches. Then we're going to get started on our following half double crochet row, so chain 2 and flip. Since we're along the top, we're going to start off our following row with a decrease of 3 half doubles again, so yarn over. Into that first stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through for again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then yarn over and pull through all 5. Then to complete this row, 1 half double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, it's going to get started on our third row in our 4-row repeat. So chain 2, flip your work and do your moss stitch row, making your way all the way up, leaving the last 4 stitches, and then I'll meet you back to do that decrease together as well. So we are back. We have finished up our second half double crochet row and also made our way up with our first moss stitch row, leaving the last 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. Now we're going to close off our row with a decrease of 3 half doubles. So everyone's last stitch should be a single crochet. What we're going to do is chain 1, skip that following stitch, and then into that next stitch, we're going to yarn over, insert into that third to last, pull through, into that second to last, pull through, into that last, pull through again for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 5. And now this moss stitch row is complete. Now let's get started on the following moss stitch row. It's going to be done pretty much the same way that we did the second moss stitch row when we were doing our increases. So just like before, let's all start with a chain 2 and flip. And what we're going to do is skip that first stitch, which should be the top of that decrease, so it's this stitch for me. And then into that next stitch, which is our chain space, we're going to start with our decrease of 3 single crochets. So into that chain space, insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, and then next stitch, which is our chain space again, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4, and just as a really quick tip, so far we should have a total of 2 stitches for this row, which is our chain space in the top of that decrease. Then from here, our regular moss stitch, so chain 1, skip a stitch, which should be the top of that single crochet, and then into that next, which is our chain space, insert with a single, and continue on with the rest of the row with the same moss stitch rows that we've been doing. Now, since this is the underarm portion, it's just going to be a repeat of these 4 rows until we have an underarm portion that can reach from the corner of our underarm, so in front of our body, over to mid-underarm. And we want to make sure that we're all ending right after our first moss stitch row. It needs to be the first moss stitch row for everyone now, because we need to have an odd number of underarm rows. And then once we have that completed, do a chain up of 1 and cut. But I'm actually all finished up with my underarm portion after my first 3 rows. So I'm going to take apart the last few stitches that I did with you guys and cut, and then I will meet you back. Alrighty, so we are back. We have finished up the entirety of our front panel. I have a total of 27 rows. My width is roughly 8.5 inches or 22 centimeters. Now from here, right after we did our chain up of 1 and cut, we're going to repeat the same thing that we did here and make 1 more identical panel. And once we have both of our panels completed, I will meet you guys back so we can get started on the back panel. So once we have both of our front panels completed, we can get started on the back. So first things first, we're all going to make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we had for our last underarm row for the front panel. Now for those of you that have my numbers, I had a total of 42 stitches. So now to get started on the back, I'm going to make a chain of 42. Now that we have our chain, we're going to get started on our first row, which is a moss stitch row, because we need to mirror the underarm portion that we have for the front panel. So we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that first chain is going to count as our turning chain, second chain is going to count as our chain, and now we're going to single crochet into the fourth chain from our hook. So here's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Into that fourth chain, we're going to bring our hook down with a single crochet, and so far for this row we should have 2 stitches. The first is our chain space, the second is our single crochet. And this is going to be per usual, so chain 1, skip a stitch, into the next with a single, and continue on with this until we all have 2 chains left. So I've done my moss stitch, I've made my way all the way down, and now from here, we're just going to finish off the row with an increase. So this is going to be the same increases that we did for the front panel, so just as a refresher, chain 1, skip that next stitch, and then into the last, which is our last chain, we're going to insert with a single, a half double, and then a double crochet. And then when our row 1 is complete, we are mirroring what we did for the front panel's underarm. So our following row is going to be a half double crochet. That's going to start with an increase since we're along the top. So all we're going to do is chain 2, flip our work, start this row off with an increase of 3 half doubles, and continue on with our half double crochet row from here. And from here, we're just going to continue on with our 4-row repeat with our increases along the top, so basically the same way that we did the neckline portion for the front panel, until we have the same amount of underarm rows as our front panel's underarm. Now since we had an odd number of rows for the front panel, we should all end along the top. And then once we have those rows finished up, I'll meet you guys back so we can get started on the width of our back panel. Alrighty, we are back. Our underarm for the back panel is complete. I had a total of 3 rows for the front panel, so I have 3 rows for the back. Now what we're going to do from here is make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we got started on the front panel's underarm. So for those of you that have my numbers, I skipped a total of 22 stitches. So from here, since we all should have ended along the top, I made a chain of 22. Then from here, it's going to be our 4-row repeat with no increases and no decreases until we have a portion that can reach from the tip of our shoulder across our back to the tip of our shoulder again. Now I'm just going to get started on the following row with you, and then I'll let you do the rest on your own. So what we're going to do now that we have our chain is block off that last chain and do the next row in our row sequence, which is a moss stitch row. So chain 2, first chain is a turning chain, second chain is a chain, then single crochet into the fourth chain from our hook. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Into that chain, insert with a single crochet, and then continue on with our moss stitch row after that. Then from here, like I said, continue to repeat our 4-row repeat until this reaches the tip of our shoulder, across our back to the tip of our other shoulder, and I'm going to meet you back right after our first moss stitch row that ends along the bottom. Alright, so we are back. The entirety of my back panel width is finished. I have a total of 44 rows. My width is roughly 13.5 inches or 34 centimeters now. And we did end right after our first moss stitch row. So since we ended there, we should have all ended along the bottom. Then from here, we're actually just going to do the exact same underarm rows as the front panel. Now, it is going to feel a little bit weird because we're ending on just one moss stitch row, but we're just doing it this way so that we don't have to do a chain up of one and cut and then reinsert our hook on the bottom and then get started with our underarm from there. It's all going to end up being the same as when we single crochet along the tops anyways. So, since we're here and we already know how to do our underarm portion, which is the same as the front panel, get that finished up, and then I will meet you guys back so that we can seam everything together. We are back. I have just finished up the entirety of my back panel. Now my total width is roughly 14.5 inches or 37 centimeters. I did do a chain up of one and cut right after my last row. And now before we seam everything together, we're just going to single crochet across the tops of the front and the back panel. So since we just finished up with the back panel, let's get started with the back. We're all going to start by inserting our hook into the top corner stitch of the back panel. Now what we're all going to do from here is put 1 single crochet into every side moss stitch row. Then when we reach our 2 half double crochet rows, we're going to put 1 single crochet into one and then 2 single crochet into the next. So let's get that started. So inserting my yarn onto my hook, I'm going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now everyone's first side row should be a side moss stitch row, so I'm just going to find that top loop and insert my hook in through there with just 1 single crochet. Now my next side row is a side moss stitch row. If yours is a side half double crochet row, that just means that you inserted your hook on the other side. That's completely fine as well. But since mine is a side moss stitch, I'm going to be putting 1 single crochet into that top loop as well. So far we're worked into 2 rows with a total of 2 stitches. And then next is our half double crochet rows. So into our first side half double, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single. And then into our next side half double, I'm going to find that top loop and then insert with 2 singles. So there is 1 single. And then into that same top loop with a second single crochet. And that is our sequence. Let's do this once more. Now my following side row is a side moss stitch row. I'm going to find that top loop, insert with 1. My next side row is another moss stitch, insert into that top loop with 1. Next side row is a side half double, into that first side half double, insert with 1, and then into that second side half double, insert with 2. So into that top loop with 1, and then with 2, and just continue this, making our way all the way down. When we don't have any more side rows left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so we have just finished up single crocheting across the top of our back panel. Now we're going to do the same thing for both of our front panels. So it's going to be pretty much the same thing, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. All we're going to do is insert our hook into the top corner stitch of one of our front panels. Then just like how we did the back panel, 1 single crochet is worked into every side moss stitch row. And then when it comes to doing our half double crochets, 1 single crochet is going to be worked into the top of that first half double. Then 2 single crochets are going to be worked into that second half double. And we're going to continue doing that only for the shoulder rows, not for any of the neckline rows. Once we made our way all the way across the shoulder rows, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we did here on the other side. Alrighty, so we are back. Now that both our front and back panel are completed with the single crochet rows along the top of both, we're now going to seam the shoulders. So what we're going to do is place the front panel on top of the back panel. And I do like to make sure that the front of the single crochet rows are faced each other, so that once we flip it wrong side out, we see the pretty side of the single crochet row, but the seam is along the inside. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now we're just going to do a single crochet row working in through both the front and back panel at the same time. So just to do this together, find that first stitch into the front panel and insert. Find that first stitch into the back panel and insert. Then we're going to single crochet, but for those of you that have tail ends like me, I'm just going to place those over my hook and single crochet around everything. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch into the front, then into the next stitch into the back, and then single crochet around everything, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. And then repeat on the other side. So now that our shoulder seams are seamed up on both sides, we're now going to seam the sides. So how that's going to work is we're all going to first make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning all the seams that we have for the shoulders are along the outside. Then we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're just going to single crochet, making sure we're working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So the same seam that we did for the shoulders until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat what we did here on the other side. Then I'll meet you back. Alright, so we are back. Everything is all seamed up, and now we're just going to single crochet around our armhole. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all of our seams are now along the inside. And then we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within the armhole, and we're going to start with a single crochet row. So we're all going to have some side rows to work into. Working into the side rows is going to be done exactly the same way as our single crochet rows on top of the front and the back panels. So as a refresher, 1 single crochet into every side moss stitch row, and then when it comes to our half double crochets, 1 single crochet into the top of the first, and then 2 single crochet into the top of the second half double crochet row. And we're going to continue that, working our way up our underarm portion. So I'm just going to do the first few with you. What we're all going to do is find our first side row, which it should be a moss stitch row for everyone. So I'm going to find that top loop and insert my hook and then I'm going to single crochet. So I'm just going to pull through and pull through 2. That's my first stitch. Then from here, our following rows are going to be half double crochet rows. So finding that first half double crochet row, I'm just going to find the top loop and insert with 1 single. And then into my following side half double, since that's my second, I'm going to insert in through there with 2 singles. And after the second half double crochet row, I'm actually all finished working my way up my underarm portion. And that's it. From here, we're going to continue on with our single crochet row, just putting 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up and over. And then same rules apply when we reach the side rows on the other side of our armhole. We've made our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we did here on the other side. So single crocheting along our armholes are complete. So getting started on the front band, we're going to start with a single crochet row along the entirety of our piece. So we're going to make sure that our work is looped right side out, right side up. Then we're all going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of our front panel and start with 1 single crochet into every stitch, leaving that last stitch right here because we're going to have to do an increase. So we've just made our way up with our single crochet row, leaving that last stitch right before we start working into our side rows. Into that last stitch, all we're going to do is insert with 3 single crochets. So there's 1, there's 2, and then there's 3. Now after that increase, we're now going to do 2 single crochets into every side row, making our way all the way up. Now we're doing 2 single crochets into every side row, just to make sure that we have enough width when we're working into our increases. So just to do the first few, this is our first side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, there's 2. Again, this is my next side row. Find that top loop and then insert with 2 single crochets again. And that's basically it. We're just going to continue on with 2 single crochets into every side row. Once we reach the back panel, 1 single crochet into every stitch, and then make our way back down the other side, 2 single crochets into every side row again. Once we reach this corner stitch within the other front panel, another increase of 3 singles, and then 1 single crochet to reach the end of the row. Alrighty, so we are back. Our single crochet row all the way around is complete. Now from here, we're just going to do front post single crochets all the way around. So from where we're at, let's all chain 1 and flip our work. All we're going to do is find the second single crochet from our previous row. So as you guys can see, we have an edge single crochet right here. We are not going to be working into there because we want the edges to be nice and blunt. So we're going to find the second single crochet, and then we're going to bring our hook underneath the body of that single crochet and then through the other side. Then we're going to single crochet per usual. That is our first front post single crochet. And that's it. We're going to continue doing that, making our way all the way around. So let's do this again. Finding the next single crochet that we have, bring your hook underneath the body of that single, through the other side, and single crochet. And just to do one more, underneath the body of that next single, insert, and single. And we're just going to make our way all the way up and around. And I'll meet you back when we're worked into our last single crochet on the other side. So we are back. We've made our way all the way around with our front post single crochets, and we don't have any more stitches left to work into. So now we're just going to close off our row with a regular single crochet into the last stitch, just to keep this end nice and blunt, and then it's just going to be a repeat. So all we're going to do is just find the last stitch from our previous row, insert our hook in through there per usual, and insert with just 1 single crochet, and that's it. Now just to get started on the following row, we're all going to chain 1 and flip. Now from the front of our piece, this is what our front post single crochet should be looking like. And we're just going to continue doing this until we get the total width that we'd like for the front band to be. So just to do the first one together, we're all going to start by finding that second single crochet from our previous row. Just like how we started off our previous row, we are not going to be worked into that edge stitch because we want this to be nice and blunt. So this is my next single crochet that I have right here. I'm going to insert my hook underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side with a front post single, and that's it. Continue doing our front post singles, making our way all the way up and around, and don't forget to single crochet into the last stitch. We're just going to continue to repeat this row, making sure that we are remembering to use a medium to loose grip while we're doing this, until we get the front band width that we like, and then I will meet you back right after we do a chain up of 1 and cut. I am back, and my front band is complete. Now I did a total of 4 rows. This width is almost a full inch or 2 centimeters. Now from here we're going to do our bottom band. So let's all make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of one of our front panels. Then all we're going to do is start by putting one single crochet into every side row that we have for the front band. Then we're going to do our single crochet row, kind of like how we did on top of the back panel and front panel. So one single crochet into every side moss stitch row, and then when it comes to the half double crochets, one single crochet into the first half double crochet, and then two single crochets into the following half double crochet. We're just going to keep doing that, making our way all the way around, and then I'll meet you back at this corner right over here. So we are back, and our single crochet row is complete. Now to do the bottom border, we're going to be doing front post single crochets, kind of like how we did for the front band. So we're all going to start by making a chain the length that we'd like for the bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I went ahead and made a chain of 6, and now we're going to do a single crochet row back down our chain. So just block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off for the second chain from our hook, start with a single crochet, and then put one single crochet into every chain. Now that we've put one single crochet into every chain, we're now going to connect it into the base. So how we're going to connect it is just start by finding that next available stitch into the base and slip stitch into there to complete our row 1. Then to work our way up to the following row, simply slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip our work, and then start with our front post single crochets. So finding the first single crochet from our previous row, we're going to find the body of that stitch and bring our hook underneath and through the other side with a single crochet, and that's it. From here, we're going to be doing our front post single crochets per usual, so just one into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So we've just put one front post single crochet into every stitch, and now we're going to close off the row with a single crochet, kind of like how we did for the front band. So we're just going to find that top stitch and insert with a single crochet, and now our row 2 is complete. Now we're just going to continue on with our front post single crochet rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. So from here, just chain 1, flip your work, and since we're working into the base, we're just going to be putting one front post single crochet into every stitch. We don't need to do a single crochet at the end of the row. Then we're going to slip stitch it into the base the same way that we just did. And I'll meet you back when we don't have any more stitches left to work into, right after we do a chain up of 1 and cut. So we are back. Our bottom band is complete. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut right after my last row. Now from here, we're going to finish off our piece with our pocket, and as you guys can see, I already have one of them all finished up. So I'm actually just going to talk you guys through how to do the other one because it's pretty simple. So we're all going to start by making an even number chain, the height that we'd like for the pocket to be, but keeping in mind that we are going to have a top brim as well. Now I'd like for mine to be roughly 5 inches or 13 centimeters. So all I did was made a chain 20. Then I did my 4-row repeat. So there's 2 half double crochet rows, 2 moss stitch rows for the width that I'd like for my pocket to be. Now I wanted my width to be roughly 4.5 inches or 12 centimeters, so I did a total of 14 rows. But once we have that width completed, I'll meet you guys back just so I can talk you guys through how we're going to do the brim. We are back. The width of my pocket is complete. Now to prep for the brim that we're going to have, we're just going to single crochet along the top, and this single crochet row is going to be per usual. So 1 single crochet into the first side half double, 2 single crochet into the next side half double, then 1 single crochet into every moss stitch row after that. I'll meet you guys back once we worked our way across the top of our... Alright, so our single crochet row is complete. Now to do our brim, it's going to be done exactly the same way as our bottom band. So we're all going to start by making a chain the height that we'd like for our brim to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 1/2 inch or 1 centimeter, so I'm going to start by making a chain 4. Then we're going to do our first single crochet row down, then front post single crochets, connecting it into the base the same way that we did for the bottom band, making our way all the way across. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I will meet you guys back so that we can seam it together. Alrighty, so we are back. We have just finished up doing our front post single crochet brim, and now from here, all we're going to do is just seam it onto our cardigan. So the seam is actually going to be completely up to you because I don't really have any real rhyme or reason to it, but I will give you guys some tips that I did. Before I started seaming everything, I just placed my pocket on top of my piece, making sure that I had it sit right where I wanted it to, and then I set it into place with my stitch markers. Then when I was working into my vertical stitches, I just made sure that I stuck to one row so that my pocket isn't zigzagged or at an angle, and I just made my way all the way around, seaming my sides, the under portion and then the side coming back up, and then I did a chain up of 1 and cut, leaving the top open. I did the same thing on the other side, making sure that it was roughly within the same amount of rows and width from the bottom band. And then once we have both these pockets completed, we are all done. Then the last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoy the tutorial. Check us out on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!